And now we enter into the twisted part of The Last of Us, as if it wasn't twisted enough already. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Here we are at the penultimate episode of The Last of Us, called When We Are in Need. It's the 8th episode, and it gets into some uncomfortable situations, to say the least. We pick back up with Ellie, who is still trying to get Joel on the mend. He's still in a bad way. He is passing in and out of consciousness, getting a lot of sleep, but just not doing well at all. Ellie is trying to get food. She's using them sparingly to kind of keep herself fed, as well as to give some to Joel, but it's running low. So she has to go out and go hunting for some deer. And that's sort of what bridges us to the new characters of this episode. David, who is the leader of this new village of folks, who his number 2 is James, played by Troy Baker, the OG Joel from the video games. But he is this preacher. David is this preacher who is teaching to his flock, trying to comfort them at a time of sadness. They have just lost one of their members. A young lady in there is crying. It's her father that they've lost, and trying to just galvanize them and bring them back so that they can have a moment of hope and peace at this time. There's an uncomfortable layer happening, and the folks that are gamers know this from going in, and those that are not. When you get the reveal at the end of what's going on, you rewatch this episode and everything plays a lot creepier than it actually is. But the daughter wants to know when they're going to bury, are they going to bury her father? And David quickly thinks of hey, it's a little too cold and frozen to bury your father. We'll bury him in the spring. Anybody with common sense knows that the body by that point is probably going to be pretty decomposed and not really able to do so. So they have another plan for that body, which we will find out as we go along. James and David have a convo outside and says, hey, there's maybe weeks left of some wild game and elk left. We're running out of rations. But we did see some deer. We spotted some deer a little bit away, so we might want to go get that. And David kind of is hey, James, I kind of can notice right now that you're not with me as much as you used to be. And James nope, still fully loyal. I get it. This is what we're doing. We're just struggling right now. And David's okay, cool. I'm glad that I still have you. Let's gather up some team members and let's go out there and find that deer. So this is sort of when those stories intersect. Ellie's out there getting her best hunt on. Joel has taught her enough that she's able to hunt and shoot a deer. She hits a deer, but the deer scares off. It still is managing to get away. And it gets away to a point where it gets in front of David and James, who are kind of who does this belong to? Let's just go ahead and take this before somebody comes. But then Ellie catches them with her. It's nope, drop it, drop your guns, drop that. That's mine. And there's a bit of a back and forth because David's trying to fill her out, who else is with you, where you need to get to, where is your village. And in this, David's well, I have a village. And so if there's anything that we can barter or trade or anything, and Ellie immediately is medicine. Do you have medicine? I can use medicine. And David's cool. We do have medicine. How about this? We'll get you some medicine. Take half the deer. I'll take the other half. We call it a day. It's yeah, that's a good plan. So David sends James off to go find, to go back to the village and get some penicillin. And James at first is wait, kind of staring. David's this isn't a coded message. Go get the penicillin. And he goes off to do so. To that point, that David is hey, it's going to get really cold out here, and it's going to take James a minute to get back. How about we move this inside this little area to take shelter and get a fire going so that we can have a little bit of heat? And Ellie's okay, cool. You drag the deer so I can get the gun trained on you, but let's go ahead and do that. This is where one of those first sort of uneasy conversations happen between David and Ellie. David's very disarming, but there's an uneasiness under everything that he says. But he tells Ellie that he found God after the apocalypse. He was a teacher beforehand, and he became a preacher now, and he sort of preaches to kind of give these folks a sense of hope, something to look forward to, something to kind of keep going on through all the malaise and just terrible things that this world has brought upon them. And this is where it starts getting a little dicey for Ellie, because at this point, David's like, and everything, I feel like everything happens for a reason. And he's super calm when he says, I feel like everything happens for a reason. Case in point, I sent 4 of my men over to find some supplies and to find some food over to a university, and only 3 of them came back because one of them was killed by a man on a horse and a little girl. And that's when Ellie realizes that he's talking about Joel and her, and that they killed one of his flock, one of his men. We then hear a gun being clocked by James, who is now have it triggered on Ellie. And David tells James, lower your gun and give her the penicillin. James is like, wait, what? And he throws the penicillin. Ellie grabs it and runs off. And James is like, are we really letting her go? Like, what are we doing? David kind of just hushes him and basically tells him to trust the process, if you will. Ellie runs back and then administers the penicillin to Joel, and then just lays there with him and falls asleep. Back at the flock, there's a couple of these moments within this episode, because at the beginning we don't know, the non-gamers don't know what is going on, but the gamers do. They keep showing shots of cuts of meat and people eating and all that stuff for a reason. It's to make you feel more and more uncomfortable. But we get a shot of the meat being cut in, and he's like, what is it? And it's like, it's venison. They may actually believe that. But it's venison. And then we see them eating or about to eat before David and James come in with the deer that Ellie had. Because Ellie she runs off. She doesn't take her half. They just take it all. So they bring it in. It's like, hey, we got deer. But a lot of those folks are kind of giving David the stink eye or quasi eye. And so at that point, David's like, I know that there are whisperings or rumblings that we have found the people who have killed the young lady's father. We're going to go searching for them tomorrow. We're going to first find the tracks in the snow, in the daylight, and we're going to go find them. At that point, the little daughter says, Hannah is her name. The daughter says, you should kill him and her. To which David responds with a nice pimp slap, right to the face, back of the hand, all of it, just all up in her face, and knocks her out of the chair. And then he goes to tell her, like, look, I know you think you don't have a father, but I'm your father now. And as your father, there's a certain level of respect that you need to show to me. And he reaches down for her hand and grab her up. There's a mind game that David is trying to play with these folks. He's trying to stay in control, trying to keep them all on a string. He wants to be the leader while these all are sort of the sheep that follow him. And so he's got to try to keep them all in line. Sometimes he has to break them to keep them in line. So that is what that sort of is implying. Then they all start eating. Her dad, yeah, plays a lot differently once you find out. It's a wild scene. Next morning, Ellie wakes up again and administers another level of penicillin to Joel, still taking care of her. Then she goes out to give her horse some water, and then she sees the birds flying off of a tree, which sort of is a signal that something is over there. She goes to track it to see what it is, and she sees that David James and the rest of his crew, like 4 or 5 members of the crew, are coming towards them, following the tracks that she sort of left. She sprints back to Joel and try to wakes him up and says, hey, look, Joel, they found me, they followed me here. I'll give you this knife. If anybody comes down here, you kill them, but I'm going to do everything possible to get them off your track. So she goes back up, sort of sets a barricade, and then she gets on her horse to ride off. You know, David has sort of given a decree to his team, don't kill her. If you find Joel, well, he doesn't know his name, but if you find the guy, kill him, do whatever you want to, but don't kill the girl. Bring the girl back to me, bring her alive. When he wants her back alive to bring her back to the flock, James has some issues with that. James is like, we don't have enough food as is, so why would you bring another person in here to do it? I get it if you even want to let her run away or go away, but don't bring her back to us. David sees something in Ellie that nobody else sees, or that James specifically doesn't see. So as Ellie is riding off, James shoots the horse, and Ellie goes flying off. And then he and James and the rest of the group outside of David come over and they're like, just go ahead and take her out. Just kill her. Just shoot her now. And then David intervenes. And David's like, look, if you guys want to get your revenge, go ahead and get your revenge, but not on her. I'm going to bring her back with me. 2 of you guys bring the horse back. We'll have more meat. The rest of you guys go door to door and knock and find out. That's how you'll take your revenge out. But she comes with me. This is where this starts getting brutal. It starts getting nice and violent here. One of the members of the flock of David's team does happen upon the house that Ellie was at. And he sees the barricade. He moves it, starts heading down the steps. At this point, Joel has already sort of tracked and heard that somebody was in the house. He's moved out the way a little bit so he can surprise this man. He just stabs him in the neck. And they both fall. And he sort of watches as the life leaves this man's eyes. We then go back to see Ellie in a cell. Ellie is in a cell with David outside, pontificating, if you will, speaking the good word. But he tells her, like, hey, look, the others in the group, they want to kill you, but I don't. I want to be here for you. I want to protect you. I see something in you. I want you to trust in me. And then if you trust in me, I'll get them all to leave you alone. It's at this point that we see another shot of Joel has sort of set up a trap where he has knocked out one of the men, Timothy, I believe is his name. He's knocked him out, and then Marco's coming around the corner and he gun butts him while he's trying to look at Timothy. So then he has 2 folks hemmed up and he's trying to get information as to where Ellie is, where their village is. He's using torture and all kinds of violent ways to do so because he is not losing another daughter on his watch. Not happening. So he's stabbing people in the kneecaps and twisting and hitting people over the head with pipes. But he gets the information he needs to get, and it is the wild boy right there. We get back, and David and Ellie are having another sort of meeting. It's at this point that Ellie clocks human debris. She sees an ear on the side, and she puts 2 and 2 together that these folks are cannibals. I want you to take this point now for all the folks who were not gamers and go back and watch all the things that happened before. When they say, nope, we're not getting rid of it. We're not burying your father. This cut of meat is venison. It's watching all those people eat dinner. That was humans they were eating. Whoa. David at this point goes on to say why he's keeping Ellie alive. He's like, look, I felt like I was failing them. I had no choice but to go to cannibalism. Like, this isn't the road that I wanted to take them down, but we had to go there because elk and all, they put their faith in me and I'm to provide for them. I didn't have the elk or any of that, so this was the best way that I could provide. This is what it sort of led to. That said, I want you to be my partner. Like, I see a lot of myself in you. You're a natural leader, you're loyal, you're violent, all the things that I think can be a good leader and a good partner together, that we can expand this world that we have and we can build this flock out, and 2 of us together can be one to make just a massive community. Then it starts getting a little weird because I'm like, is he hitting on her too? Like, in addition to being a partner, it seems like he wants a partner on the sexual level as well, which is why I think he keeps trying to get her name, because he's trying to get some sort of type of a human connection with her. Because he then starts reaching to the cage and it's like, it feels like he's trying to be emotionally connected to Ellie. And so he starts saying, hey, we can do this together. We can be a partner to one somebody. And then Ellie starts sort of playing along too, to the point where he can get her hands on his hands enough, she can break his finger. He breaks her finger. She breaks his finger. And then David grabs her head and smashes into the cage a few times. So her nose is bloody and her face is bloody. He calls her the C word and he's like, all bets are off. Whatever deal I was thinking about doing for you before, he can't be fixed. We need to go ahead and kill you. Joel stumbles upon the town. He finds it, but he can't find Ellie. He does see a blood trail where the horse has sort of been dragged. And in that area, he finds the horse. And he also sees that these people ain't on the best terms up here. He sees a bunch of people hung with their heads removed, blood drained, and entails out. So he knows that these people, there's a barbarianistic behavior that happens here that has not quite been seen in this series yet, but does make sense with the logical progression of how some people may have gotten here. Like, if all hope is sort of lost, we got to start eating each other to make it through. James and David come back to unlock Ellie and just take her out. They're going to kill her. While they're trying to get her out the cage, she bites David in the hand, and then they're about to cleaver her to death. At which point, Ellie screams out, "Wait, wait, wait! I'm infected!" And they're like, "Wait, what?" She's like, "No, I'm infected. Roll up my arm." They see that she has the bite on her arm. At which point, gives her enough point because James and David start thinking, "Wait, wait, is she like she would have turned by now?" Enough time to hesitation. She grabs the cleaver and takes it to James's neck. Well, it was nice knowing you, Troy Baker. Good, thanks for joining us. Good to see you. And he's gone. And then Ellie takes off, starts running, gets up out of there, and then we have this cat and mouse that sort of occurs between David and Ellie, very much like the game. This all of this is plays 1-to-1 like the game, but this scene specifically because you're trying to hide and kind of duck around where he can't see you, but he's pontific like spewing out just some crazy rhetoric all the time. Um, but Ellie grabs a poker with some embers on it and throws it, and it just catches the entire place on fire. So this whole scene is happening while being engulfed in fire. And David's talking about how much they could have run everything had she just followed suit. David eventually gets the one up on her, and he's pinning her down, and she feels completely helpless and screaming. But she gets a bit of a moment to get a hold of the knife and slashes at David, and then she gets on top of him and just has a field day stabbing him like nonstop. I can't. I lost count. Don't have any idea how many times she stabbed that man, but Jesus, it is brutal, brutally satisfying is the way that I would look at that because the barbarian and cannibalistic methods that they use to live, she has just gone, she's just reached into that barbarianism that she had to survive here, just to survive, just to get out of this because she saw no end. Joel's not here to save her. She's on her own. The only thing she can do is just stab this man till nothing is left. She releases that, and then she heads out of there. And then when she heads out, she is grabbed from behind by Joel. She starts fighting him until Joel turns around with, "No, no, I got you. It's me. It's me. I got you, baby girl," which might have been one of the most heart melting things that I've heard him say to her, because it's that father daughter moment that they've sort of been building up to this entire show. They kind of really have it there, and she finds solace in him, and he finds solace that he's saved her, and then they can continue on to the rest of their journey. And that is how this episode ends. This episode is a Bella Ramsey showcase. Pedro gets to play around too when he's torturing people, but this is a Bella showcase. She is fantastic in this episode as Ellie. I think a lot of the tension in this episode come in the David and Ellie conversations that go back and forth to show how somebody who seems to be on face value very calm and collected, but there is something underneath that is very dark, sinister, and has led into a world of barbaric behaviors. And I think what happens with this game and this show do so well is that each episode sort of shows you a pocket of people and how they have chosen to survive, whatever methods they have lived or gone through to continue on in this world. We get to see a little bit of all of that, from Ravagers to people who were in love to people who everything. We run the gambit. And this, folks, was the penultimate episode before we get to the finale, where we get to see people who have gone to their deepest and darkest. And it is played and acted beautifully from all parties. When I didn't think the show could get any more twisted, uh, they landed, and it definitely got the feelings of what that game, that level, that part of The Last of Us game felt like. You got to feel that here, and it felt uneasy. Go back and watch the dinner scenes now, knowing that these folks are cannibals, and it's just like, oh God, this is rough. We've seen so many different levels of people and how they've sort of acclimated to this world post-apocalypse. We now, in this final episode, are going to go see what happens when we get Ellie to the location where we can get her blood and get ready for the cure. So excited to see what this final episode brings to people, how viewers get to view it. I know what's happened. I know what's going to happen, but it's going to be interesting to see how viewers respond to the finale. But this episode was a doozy. What did you guys think about this episode, the penultimate episode of The Last of Us, called When We Are in Need? Go to leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. We just talked about Creed 3 on this latest one. Like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.